Today, when the Charleston community gathers to remember and grieve the 9 parishioners murdered in the 2015 massacre at the historic Mother Emanuel AME Church, Sarah Collins Rudolph, a survivor of the 1963 bombing of Birmingham's 16th Street Baptist Church, will be with them. Thursday, June 17 marks 6 years since avowed white supremacist Dylann Roof entered the Mother Emanuel AME Church and opened fire on a group of parishioners as they met for evening Bible study. The rampage injured 5 parishioners and killed 9, including the church's pastor. Sarah Collins Rudolph was 12 years old when dynamite planted in the basement of 16th Street Baptist Church by members of the Ku Klux Klan exploded the morning of September 15, 1963. The blast killed her sister Addie Mae Collins and their friends Carole Robertson, Cynthia Wesley, and Denise McNair. Rudolph suffered severe injuries from the explosion, which blew glass and shrapnel at her face, leaving her blind in one eye. 12 days later, Life magazine ran a black and white photograph of Rudolph lying in a hospital bed with bandages covering both of her eyes. The image, which shocked the world, was a haunting depiction of the horrors of white supremacy. The murder of Addie Mae Collins, Carole Robertson, Cynthia Wesley, and Denise McNair, collectively known as the 4 Little Girls, marked a turning point in the fight for civil rights. The movement gained new momentum as black musicians penned protest songs in response to the bombing, immortalizing the stories of the innocent children. But while Rudolph was called the 5th little girl, few people knew the proper account of what happened to her the morning of September 15 and in the decades after the bombing. Rudolph, who suffered from severe injuries and PTSD for years, stayed out of the public eye. It would be nearly 30 years before she broke her silence. And in the late 80s, she began to tell her survivor story, the story of how Birmingham showed the world what was going on. The story of how the church, which had been the place of her trauma, would later help her to heal. And the story of how her testimony would bring 3 of the 1963 bombing suspects to justice, decades after the murder of her sister and their friends. In November, Rudolph released her memoir, The 5th Little Girl, sole survivor of the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. In the works for over a decade, the book offers a detailed account of her early life in civil rights-era Birmingham, where she grew up steeped in the social justice movement. Thursday evening, Rudolph will join the Emanuel AME community for a forgiveness forum to honor and remember parishioners lost in the 2015 attack. During the panel, which will be streamed virtually starting at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, registration is required for viewing. The community will dissect the meaning of forgiveness as a method of healing and social justice.